Welcome to the development phase. The following module covers what we call development phase because this is the part where you develop the project. Sometimes it's called, in the project lifecycle, the planning phase. So when you go and implement project management in your specific organizations, you're going to need to think about what is a project lifecycle going to look like. The framework that the Project Management Institute provides for us in best practice across the world is that there is an ideation or selection phase where we think about how to create ideas driven by strategy, and then we select the project we want to initiate. And then we move into a project concept phase, or in PMI terms, initiation phase, where you will initiate the project. There's typically a business case that was presented. There is a request for a project or some sort that helps define high level, not quite a plan yet, but a scope that covers what the project is. Then comes the project development phase that I call, which is actually the real planning phase. The real planning phase is when we say a plan. At the end of this phase, you will have baseline plans. That is baseline budget, baseline scope, quality, baseline timelines at the end of this phase. So coming into this phase, you will be expecting to receive a project initiation request, perhaps a rough statement of work, and the beginnings of a project charter. Completing the project charter will then give you the work breakdown structure. So the input process is that you've identified your stakeholder. There is some kind of a statement of work or project charter initially put together by the sponsor, and as a result, you're going to go into the planning phase. It's really important to understand that the constituency of the project organization at this juncture. At this phase, you have the stakeholders who are always going to be there because they are part of the organization that is hosting the project. And then there are the project champions. These are the guys that are driving strategy and programs across the organization. And then comes a very important role called the project sponsor. And this is the person who went up to the bosses asking for approval to initiate a project and do this. This is important because typically this role in best practice is separate from the role of the project manager. This is to ensure that there is the voice of the product, there's the voice of the customer in the form of a project sponsor, who will then ask the project manager, who will focus in delivering the output of the project. And so these two roles are distinct. They're kind of important to understand. So when you go to the project planning phase, you have a project charter. Your project charter, and let's pay really close attention to it, calls the project by name, calls the project manager by name, a target start and end date, probably given to us by our stakeholders and our sponsor on what the deadline is going to be, a high-level budget, right? A scope of work, some assumptions, constraints. We also will have some acceptance criteria along the way. And perhaps what we will have a very simple roles and responsibilities articulation in that project charter document. People are signed off, they're bought into the project, and now it is handed over to the project manager. The project manager will take the project charter and try to progressively elaborate the project charter further to ensure that he eliminates as much of the ambiguities as he can. And you can't really remove all the ambiguities in the beginning of the project, ergo the need for progressive elaboration. Make sense? And so once he is satisfied with the level of detail and clarity that the project charter has, he moves on to the next stage, which is to develop a work breakdown structure. In the previous phase, he probably created a high-level work breakdown structure. We discussed this. This could be in the form of a organizational chart or a hierarchical chart. where you can illustrate very easily visually how the work packages will break apart. And I will give you a few examples of a good high-level work breakdown structure that is basically based on the principle that the sum of all of the components and the nodes that makes up a WBS sums up and rolls up to become the product or the output of the project.